So welcome to my channel. So in today's video, what we're going to do is that we're going to learn about data structure. So I'm a computer science major, so I'm taking data structure right now. So in this course, what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to show you guys what I learned, so that you guys can we can also study together. So in the first day of class, we got to talk about pseudocode, what it actually means, and we also get the hand-on experience where we all break into group and then we develop a pseudocode for a certain program, right? So let's talk about what pseudocode is. So let me open a... Alright, so first thing first, data structures, and algorithm. Okay, so what is pseudocode? So let's say we have taken the programming classes before. So in order for the computer to do something for us, we have to be able to communicate with the computer, right? We need to know the language that we can communicate with the computer. It can be high language like Python, C++, Java, JavaScript, or it can be a very low language like assembly language or machine language, right? So, however, this is why pseudocode is so important. Pseudocode is not the actual code that you actually write, but the pseudocode is just a very basic language. It's close to coding language, but it's more like a speaking language. You're gonna write out the steps that you need to take to develop a program, right? So think of the very key word for pseudocode is basically, you can just say it like instructions. Not instruction, yes, instructions. Very close to speaking language, right? So why pseudocode is so important? Why pseudocode is important, right? So let's say you work with a team of programmers, and each programmers know a different language, right? So in order to communicate between, if I want to communicate with another programmer and that programmer doesn't know or doesn't know the language that I'm speaking, doesn't use like C++, he uses Python, for example. It's very important. It's very hard for me to show the code to him, and he understands what I'm trying to say. And before we even write a code, do we even know it's gonna work? So the pseudocode is basically like a backbone. Like, I'm gonna explain to him that step by steps. These are the things that you need to take. These are the things that you're going to write in your code. It's basically the logic of the code. And then we're gonna talk about pseudocode, like we talk about it to see if it actually makes sense. Because as programmers, we understand the logic. When we get the logic down, the format of the language is gonna be very easy for us to understand. Oh, easy for us to pick up and write something, right? So pseudocode is used to communicate with other programmers, and then find out if there are any errors, like logic error. Okay, so let's get into one of the example, right? So let's say that I want to print out print out the word hello world 10 times. So the goal, example, sorry, this should not be bold, these should not be bold. Okay, example, print out the word hello world 10 times. So as a group of programmers, let's say we are talking with a pseudocode, we're talking, okay, so what do we need to do in order to print out this phrase 10 times? So of course, if you guys know about the for loop, we can use the for loop, right? Instead of writing, I write in C++. But let's say I just say, okay, so what we need to do is that we're going to the first step, just create a variable string that whole hello world, right? And then the next thing would be like for using for loop that iterate 10 times, and then inside that loop, no, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna call functions print, call function print, and this functions will take a string and also the times the number of executions. So say you want to print the world hello world 10 times, and you're gonna put the world, you're gonna put hello world in here, and then you also put 10 in here, so that will print out the word hello world 10 times, right? So we're gonna need an integers as well, right? And then so that's what we do. So create a variable called functions print string integers. So and then we gotta write how does the function print actually work. The function print will take into will take a strings and also the integers. Let's say string value, and then integers number of executions, right? And then inside of that functions we have like a for loop, iterate number of execution times, and then print hello world. Yep, so that is basically the pseudocode. So when you try to write this into an actual program, this would not work out. But the thing is like, but if you write out on the whiteboard and try to explain to the other programmers what you're trying to do, they'll be able to understand, okay, so I see what you're trying to do, so all I have to do is just translate this piece of code, this pseudocode, into the language that I'm writing. So that is pseudocode. And we also got to work on the problem that, okay, I'm going to show you guys the problem. So the example, the problem is that we got to, let's say we have a list of we are given a list of last names, and then the task is to display all the characters in the last name and the number of counts. So for example, let's say the list have Derek, Yui, right? So those are like two last names, let's say. So it's gonna display letter D with a count of 2 because there are 2D in the last names, 1D right here and 1D right here, and so on. So we have letter E, the cow is gonna be 2, right? So and then the professors kind of asked us like, hey, how are you gonna write a pseudocode for this? So what I come up with is that, okay, so I have to think, okay, so how am I gonna do this? So let's say she gives us a string. Let's say we have a string, right? A string that contains the world, hello world, right? No, I'm sorry. The string that contain last name. The string last name contain Derek and Yui. right? So the thing is that what I want to do is just basically combine these two words together. And the reasons why I want to combine these two words together, because it's going to be a lot easier for us to find out the count. And I'm going to show you guys why we're doing this. So I'm going to convert into only one string. So it's going to be string. So this string last names right here is actually an array. It holds two elements. Right? So basically I'm trying to combine them together, and the process of when I combine them together, the process of looking at each single character is gonna be a lot easier, right? So because we only have to work with a single string. And the second things I need to do is just pass this string into a function, and this functions will take let's say we call the function is count, and you think of this function as basically taking that string, take into the string, and display the count of it's gonna display the characters and also the count of each single character. So when you think of it, if you don't have the very clear concept or the pictures in your mind what a function is. So a function is basically just like a machine, right? A machine is where you put something into it and it's gonna produce something else for you. Let's say I want to create like a water bottle, right? If I want to create this water bottle, what I need is some plastic, and I'm gonna put it in there, right? Let's say there's machines, I'm gonna put some plastic in there, and I don't know exactly what the machine does. Sometimes I do if I'm the one to create the machine. Sometimes I don't. Some other people have made the machines for me. So I put the plastic in there, and the machines will kind of do its work and just create a bottle for you. So that is the function. So that is the function, right? So that's how I understand function. Right. So let's write the pseudocode. Pseudocode. We are given a string, right? A string array with last names. I'm gonna convert the string array with last name into only one string, and I'm gonna call the functions. Let's say function count, and I'll pass that string in there. And then I'm gonna, okay, so I'm gonna write, so what does a cow function do? Let's say that cow function, it's gonna be a void functions, right? It doesn't, so a void function is basically, it's not gonna return, it's gonna give you an output. It's gonna show you what it does inside of the machine, right? Let's say, I'm gonna put this sounds like a stupid example, but this, when you put some plastic into like a machines, right, you can see process of how the plastic is molded and whatever is going to be processed and made into like a water bottle. But it's not going to produce a water bottle on as the output. It just show you, let's say there's a machines and there's like a screen, right, and you can see the inside where the plastic is formed and is made the water bottle, but you would never get it. That's called a void functions. You can only see it, but you can never use it, right? So that's called void. And then you have inside of that you have a string, and also so that string. Remember that strings is the element, only one element that hold all the last name. So let's say it's gonna look like this, right? So how are we gonna do this? So we have to say, okay, so the way that we're gonna do this is just basically look at every single characters of the strings, right? And then compare with each others. So let's say if we take a look at the first characters of the string, we have letter D, and if we compare it with the next characters, because they're not equal, we are going to move on, and we keep moving on until we get to letter D. So it means that there are two characters, two letter D in the last names. However, we have to keep going on, keep moving on, right? Until we get to the end. So that's the process. That's how we're gonna do it. And then we're gonna move to the next characters. So we're gonna take a look. So we're gonna use, let's say we're gonna use this characters, and we're gonna compare it with the next characters. R, right? What's going on? And then so on. We're gonna take this. I cannot highlight it. It's weird. Sorry. It's so weird. Give me a second. So we take this character, right? We're gonna compare with this character. And then I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna compare with this character until I get to the last characters, the Y letter, right? And you just do the same process again and again until you get to the last element. So in order to do that, so I always have to tell myself that I also need to have an integer named count. So it's gonna be like a counter that's gonna display the number of characters inside of the number of characters. Sorry, a friend of mine sent me a text message. So he just messaged me like the COVID-19 in Austin is slowing down. It's great news. Only like 17 cases confirmed. Alright, so the count should be 1 because it doesn't matter what character you counting. There should be always 1, right? Because you look at these characters, even though there's no, let's say you look at this character R and you keep counting until the end, and there's no incident where there's another R, it still means there's one R. So you have to say, you have to display letter R and also display the count as 1. So count is 1, right? And then we're gonna do this for the for loop, integer I, let's say I 0 till I less than the string size, and then increment I by 1, right? And inside of that, what we want to do is that we say if that string I equal to the same as the next, my bad. So it's gonna be for integer j equal I plus 1. The reasons why it's I plus 1 is because for the first executions, we're looking at letter D. The index is 0, right? However, inside the another loop, for loop, what we want to compare is the rest of these characters with letter D. So we have to do I plus 1. So if it's 0 right here, J is going to be equal to 1. So we compare letter D with letter E, right? And then J less than string size, and increment I J by 1 as well. And then inside of this for loop, we also have another characters. We also have another conditional statement. In this conditional statement asks ourselves, okay, so if the characters, the origin characters, right here, is it equal to another characters in the string? So if string I equal string j, then we just have to say count plus plus, and this is where things get messy, right? So when we encounter letter D right here, we have to delete the second D as well. The reasons why you have to delete the second D is because if you don't delete it, at the end you're gonna display letter D with a count of 2, and then later on you're gonna display letter D with a count of 1, right? So it's not correct. So we also have to delete that D. So delete string J. But when you delete the string J, you also have to subtract J by 1. Let's say right here. So if you delete the D, right, I want to give you a better example. So in this case, we have the string DDE, right? So the size is going to be 3, right? So let's say we look at this code right now for I equals 0. So let's say I equals 0. So 0, 1, and 2. Those are the indexes. 0 indicates D, 1 indicates D, 2 indicates E, right? So for this, give me a second. I'm thinking. Give me a second. Trying to phrase it. Okay, so in this first for loop, we're taking a look at the first characters, which is letter D, and then we're gonna compare with every single characters after that. And let's say if this character is the second character is the same as D, right? It's getting to this loop, and it's gonna delete that D, right? So we're gonna lose this D. Awesome. So now it's gonna go back to this loop. So I is gonna be equal to 1 now. So we're gonna compare E. However, the size is only 2 now. Oops, my bad. Give me a second. Wait, hold on. I know what I'm trying to say, but it's very hard for me to like try to think in code and then explain to you guys. Give me a second. Okay. Never mind, you really don't have to decrement it by 1. I think I just made a wrong decisions in my mind. So that's all you have to do. So that's a pseudocode. And thank you so much for watching my video. If you like this video, and if you guys have any suggestions on how I should make the learning a lot better, so I'm just here to kind of make video to reteach myself of the class, the course, but also if you guys like my video, just make sure you guys hit like or subscribe, and just let me know what you guys want me to add into the video. And thank you so much for watching my video.